Good day. As you can see here, we're going to get going with a little bit of 1-point perspective. Now today is going to be the basics, kind of elementary. We're going to just concentrate on taking 2-dimensional shapes and turning them into 3-dimensional shapes. Square to a cube, circle to a cylinder, we're going to use an octagon, we're going to use a triangle, we're going to use a pentagon. We're going to get those all in today. We're going to work pretty quickly. Alright, so the beautiful thing about this video is you can kind of pause, stop, rewind, start over as you need. Work pretty quickly to get through this video. When you're dealing with 1-point perspective, the most basic idea, number one, is creating depth and distance. Number two, we're trying to create a 3D image. 3D image is kind of something, it's not flat. Square would be flat, 2D. A cube would be 3D. Anytime that you're going to draw in 1-point perspective, you're always going to have two things. One is something called a horizon line. All right, a horizon line, what it does is it separates the ground from the sky. Okay. Number two, you're going to have a vanishing point. A vanishing point is going to be a dot on that horizon line that's going to help us create this third dimension. Okay. So today we're not going to really have a ground and sky. We are going to have our horizon line. We are going to have our vanishing point. No ground and sky, just kind of floating objects today. Just getting the idea of 2D to 3D. Okay. So I'm sitting here with a sheet of paper. My sheet of paper is 9 inches tall, it's 12 inches wide. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go halfway up my paper. So we know from here to here is 9, from here to here is 12. I'm measuring up. I'm going to go halfway up my paper. Half of 9 is 4.5. Okay? So if you're not good with a ruler, and sometimes I have to go over these things a little bit, so that's okay. I'm going to zoom in. I'll attempt to zoom in, but it's hard to zoom in when you record. So if I sit this thing up pretty close to you, if you'll notice when you look at a ruler, and when I say notches, I mean these little white lines here, but the longest notches on your ruler are your inch marks, 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, so on and so forth. Now I'm just going to talk about between 4 and 5 because that's the first measurement we're going to use. So it's divided up into 1 inch, ½ inch, 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch, so on and so forth. Probably won't go past 1/4 of an inch. You may see 1/8 of an inch every now and then. So I told you the big ones are 1 numbers, whole inch, 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, 5 inch. The second longest notch between your two numbers is your ½ inch. That's the longest one there, 3.5. The longest one between 2 and 3 is 2.5. Well, you've done fractions in math. A half of a half is a 1/4. So that's my longest notch. Goes to an 1/8 and to a 1/16. Okay, so long notch is 1 inch. Second longest notch is ½ inch. Keeps on going down, 1/4, 1/8, so on and so forth. Okay, so if you ever know a carpenter, contractor, they're going to tell you measure twice, cut once. Because if I measure wrong and I cut the board, I can't just uncut the board. I have to get a new board. So when we measure and put these lines on, if you just measure up half, do a dot and draw a line, your line's going to end up crooked. So I always measure a couple times and I play the game connect the dots. I'm coming from the bottom. We go up, and when I hit 4.5, I'm just going to put a little notch right there. I'm going to scoot over to the right. I'm going to do the same exact thing. I went up 4.5. It's half of my paper. Okay, if your paper's a different size, just go halfway up. So if your paper's 10 inches tall, go 5. If it's 6 inches tall, go 3. Okay, so I'm playing connect the dots, so that way I know I'm 4.5, 4.5. It's level all the way across. All right, so let's just start with our first shape. Excuse me, we have to get a vanishing point. So this is our horizon line. Now we need a vanishing point. A vanishing point is going to be a dot on this horizon line to create our depth or distance, or our third dimension. So my paper's 12 inches wide. Let's go straight to center, number 6. I'm just going to put a big obnoxious dot right there at number 6. And that is my vanishing point. All right. So like I said, I don't care if you're doing 1-point perspective, 2-point, 5-point, 20-point, whatever. You're always going to have a horizon line and vanishing point or points. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going up here top left somewhere. Okay? And I'm just going to draw a square. It's about 1 inch on every side. If yours is a little bit more or a little bit less, not a big deal. Just keep keep it close to an inch. That way, now we've got numerous shapes to fit on here, and we don't want to run out of room. So I'm an inch on every side. Makes it a square. So bottom line is, we're going to try to turn this square into a cube, 2D to 3D, okay? And we want to try to send as many points or corners of this square that we can to the vanishing point without drawing through our square. Okay, so that gives me, I've got 3 corners to my square. So let's just try this out. So what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to line these straight up with the vanishing point. I'm going to draw these lines lightly because we're going to end up erasing a little bit. So I've got, let's just start at corner 2. Line that up with my vanishing point. I'm just going to draw a nice light line. Now, sometimes when people hold down here, they tend to press and make dark lines. If you're having trouble, move your hand up on that pencil. Get you some lighter pressure, and you won't draw near as dark a lines. Dark lines are hard to erase. Point, corner 3 can go to our vanishing point. Good. Didn't draw through anything. Corner 4, going straight to our vanishing point. Okay. Corner 1. What happens if I line up corner 1? What will I be doing? Well, I'd be drawing right through my object. And I just said, hey, we're never going to draw through our objects. So that eliminates corner 1. All right, so we're only able to use 3 corners. Remember, we never draw through our object. You know, odds are, whatever your object is, you're not going to be able to send every single corner to the vanishing. Okay, so we've got kind of like what looks like a square spotlight up in the air. We need to turn this square spotlight into a cube. So we need to think parallel lines. Well, we know from hatching and cross-hatching that parallel lines are lines that are pretty much identical twins. You know, in math they can't touch. Here they don't cross. But, you know, if one's straight, the other one's straight. If one wiggles, the other one wiggles the same way. Okay, so we're just going to think of those as like identical twins. All right? So, by saying that, we're going to have to create 2 parallel lines. My first one goes from corner 2 to 3. So if that one's up and down, just choose an area over here. This one's up and down. My bottom one goes 3 to 4. It goes left to right, so guess what? This one goes left to right. A good way to do this, lay your ruler down on the line you want to use. And just slide the ruler over. Okay. Our blues are parallel to each other and are parallel to each other. Laying it right there. I'm going to slide it down. There we go. I'm just going to kind of shade in that side and bottom so we know. Okay. Now, here's something that you want to get in the habit of right now when you do one-point perspective. We want to get rid of lines we don't need. Notice we've got these lines going to our vanishing point. Well, what happens when I get about 5 to 6, 7 or 8 shapes on here and I've got all these lines going to the vanishing point? It's going to be pretty confusing. You're not going to know what goes where. So you want to get in the habit of getting rid of lines we don't need as we go. It's going to keep our drawing clean. It's going to keep it easy to read. You know, it's not going to give you a headache from staring at all these lines. You know, the last thing you want somebody to do when they look at your artwork is get a headache from it. All right, so pause the video. I want you to go down here to the bottom left. I want you to create a square on your own without me walking you through it. Send all those in. Figure out which corner you can't use. Parallel lines. do we do with lines we don't need? Get rid of them. Tell them to get out of here. Okay, so like I said, you can pause and rewind, what have you. All right, let's jump up. Let's try a triangle. Now, when I do this triangle, my top one, I'm going to try to make it like an arrow pointing at my vanishing point. So I'm just going to kind of get a line that's perpendicular. And I'm going to send this dude in. I'd prefer you guys use your ruler if you can. I've got a lot of practice. I can draw a pretty straight line if need be. We don't want to see any slinkies. Okay, so we need to see how many points or corners. Now, if yours is turned that way, you know, where you're getting a line like that, you're probably only going to use 2. Remember, we can't draw through our shape. Okay? Send every point and corner of my object to the vanishing point. Parallel lines. My left line is slanted. Well, guess what my parallel line is going to do? Slant. Right one slants in. Well, guess what? The right parallels are going to slant in. Okay, identical twins. 2 chocolates and 2 vanillas. 2 cheeseburgers, 2 chicken sandwiches, whichever way you want to look at it. But they're parallel. Okay, I'll even set this guy up down here for you. So after you do one on top, just rotate your triangle a different way. And do it on their own. Do one on your own. This bottom one's going to look like an old school tent. Get your little opening for the tent there. Okay. Let's move along. Okay. Let's take these 2 shapes. Let's combine them together. A square and a triangle together to make a pentagon. So, I'm going to kind of go at an angle here. I'm going to try to get a lot of these. So an easy way to draw a pentagon, start with your square. Like I said, I'd prefer you guys use a ruler. And in one side of that square, add a triangle. Voila. Pentagon, home plate, however way you want to look at it. Okay? Remember, do we draw through our object? No, we do not. So that's probably going to eliminate this one. I don't know if we'll get to that one or not. I know we can hit these 3. So sometimes it depends on a couple things. You know, where it's at and how it's turned. You know, if it was real close and sitting on top of the vanishing point, still may only get a couple. It wouldn't matter which way it's turned. So it just depends. I can't get to that one. I don't draw through my object, so we don't do that one. So this one's going to end up looking like a house or a milk carton. This line is tilted, so this line is tilted the same way. Line straight, so that line straight. So, got our milk carton. Like I said, you guys can pause and rewind. I'm just going to keep this trucking along. We're going to get you a couple more shapes, and then tomorrow we're going to deal with a city street. Okay, well, we've dealt with squares, we've dealt with triangles, we put them together, made a pentagon. What do I do if I end up with a shape that has no corners, no points, or no sides? Now remember, I've told you guys, if you have trouble with a circle shape, start out with a plus shape from your math class, and if you make sure that circle hits every end of that plus sign, you'll have a decent circle, and then you can just kind of work on it from there. Okay, so with a circle, here's the best way I can tell you to do this. I don't have any points, I don't have any corners, I don't have any sides. So I'm just going to kind of take my ruler from my vanishing point, I'm going to slide over and go as far as I can while still touching that. If I go this way, I'm not touching it. Barely touching it. So when I set this guy up, it's going to look like a microphone or like a one single scoop ice cream cone. Okay, well, parallel lines. So if my circle is curved, your parallel line will be diagonal. No, just kidding. It will be curved. So now we're going to end up with a cylinder shape, soda can, Pringles can, things like that. Getting rid of lines that we don't need. I forgot to do that. Okay. Once you do a circle, if you want to go down here, maybe try a pancake shape. You know, you're going to see some pancake shapes, especially when we do a city street. You know, those manhole covers for the sewers and the street, whatnot. We'll get those in. You're just going to see some. Kind of looks like a, you guys are old enough, you may not be, to remember a fig Newton. Not a cookie, but a fig Newton. That's what they kind of look like. Last shape we're going to tackle is an octagon. 8 sides, stop sign. Okay, here's the easiest way in the world to draw an octagon. I want you to start with a square. You're going to take that square and you're going to cut off all 4 corners. Bada bing, bada boom. Octagon. So when you guys add this one on, you know, octagon's kind of like a circle. It doesn't matter which way you twist it, turn it, you're still probably going to only get about 5 of those 8 corners. This will end up looking like a bolt, or like a hexagon screw top, whatnot. Okay. Left to right, slanted, slanted, up and down, going in. Put a little Phillips head, put the screwdriver in there and turn it. Okay, now if you want to come up with some of your own shapes, you know, if you want to take some of these shapes, combine them, come up with your own, some with points, some with corners, some with curves, that'd be a great way to practice before we move on to our city streets tomorrow. Okay, so this is the idea of basic shapes. We went from 2D to 3D. We're creating some depth and some distance. Okay, so today, just kind of getting the idea of what 3-dimensional shapes are going to look like and how we make those. So remember, you're always going to have 2 things. Horizon line, not a verizon line, but a horizon line that separates the ground from the sky. Tomorrow, your horizon line will most definitely separate your ground from the sky. And a vanishing point. That is that dot that we're sending everything to. Without the vanishing point, you have no depth or distance. Good luck. See you tomorrow.